I want to step up to the plate and try to follow that and do something different, but to put my own stamp on it. So I think I've always felt like that, whether it was Star Wars or Avengers. Like I've never felt shy. I think you can't be afraid to put your fingerprints on the characters, right? To bend them and maybe break them a little bit. That's the only way to tell exciting stories.
You wrote Marvel Legacy 1 last year to kind of restart the whole Marvel U. What was that project like for you? What kind of pressure was on you to get that issue just right?
Well, I mean, it's a huge issue. You know, it was oversized. It was a whole bunch of artists, different artists, and loads of different characters, some of which I'd never written before. Like, I'd never written one comic that had that many characters in it. So yeah, it was a lot of pressure. You know, we looked at that as like a just sort of window into the Marvel universe at that point in time. So whether you've been reading Marvel stuff or not, you could pick that issue up and it tells you, you know, what are things like for Spider-Man, what are they like for Captain America, all these different characters, and then things sort of shot out from there.
Is that harder than we think it is? Because I know that's a big thing in comics. Each issue is somebody's first comic, but that's got to be pretty hard to write when you've been knee-deep in the weeds of comics for as long as you have.
Sure. I mean, I think I try to do that and keep that in mind no matter what I'm doing. You know, you don't want to lose sight of the fact that not everybody knows these characters as well as we do. Not all of our readers have been, you know, reading Thor or whatever for 50 years, right? So you always want to put in that issue, why is this character cool? You know, why am I, as the writer, excited about this character? I want to impart that to you as opposed to just assuming you already know that, assuming you already love that character. So I try to do that whatever issue I'm doing. But yeah, Marvel Legacy in particular, because you know, it was not just about my books, it was about everybody's books. It was feeding into everything. And then yeah, I also used that to set up what I already knew I was going to be doing in Avengers, what I was already working on with Avengers, because Marvel, it fit perfectly because Marvel Legacy was really about the past, present, and future of the Marvel universe, right? We were setting up the stories we're going to do in the future, but also looking back at the great legacies of these characters. And what I was going to do in Avengers involved these prehistoric heroes, you know, Odin and this band of basically the caveman Avengers. So it fit perfectly in that sort of legacy frame.
The Avengers title, start with an easy question here. Which one are you planning to kill off first?
Well, you have to wait and see. There are a bunch of bodies that fall over the course of that arc. I won't say
in the first arc?
What kind of bodies they are, but yes.
Bodies are dropping in the first arc. Well, there you go.
Bodies are literally falling from the sky in the first arc.
Ooh, tantalizing clue. Mm-hmm. How did you go about picking the lineup for the team you wanted?
You know, it started with the reunited Big Three. We get Steve Rogers, Tony Stark, and Thor Odin's son back together at the core of an Avengers title for the first time in years, right? Like, I can't remember the last time we had those.
Like in the early Bendis years, was that the last time they were together?
Probably. It's been a long time.
It's been a while.
Yeah, since we've had those three guys together at the center of a team. So it starts with that. Literally in the first issue, it starts with the three of them sitting down for drinks together and talking about things, and then we kind of build a team around them. So all the characters are sort of brought in for very specific story reasons. Some of them are present day versions of those same characters we see in the prehistoric Avengers, and those are kind of some of Marvel's biggest legacy characters, and Ghost Rider's one of those. So we see Robbie Reyes, the newest Ghost Rider, sort of the kid of the group. He's the one who doesn't know these characters, they don't know him, he's never been a part of something this big. He drives a car. I like having an Avenger who shows up driving a car.
Oh my gosh, you're right. I don't know if an Avenger's ever driven a car.
Exactly. You know, and you get, you know, some of the other biggest, most iconic Marvel characters like Black Panther and Doctor Strange, and Jennifer Walters is the Hulk of the team, and it's a bit different take on She-Hulk than we've seen in the past.
How are you tweaking She-Hulk? What is your She-Hulk going to be like?
Well, you can see just from the visuals, she's bigger, right? Like especially with Ed McGuinness drawing the book, who drew Hulk for years, and his Hulk is so distinctive.
He's got a meaty, muscular style.
It looks really huge, and you know, it doesn't look like Lou Ferrigno, right? It's like that's not humanly possible the way his Hulk looks. So I wanted more of that with her. I mean, the She-Hulk in the past looked kind of like just a bodybuilder, spray painted green. So I want her to be a little more leaning into what Ed does great with the Hulk. And as part of that, we tweak her powers a little bit too, and give her, something that separates her more from her cousin Bruce Banner.
Which of the characters in your Avengers lineup has been the surprise for you in terms of how much fun you're having writing them?
Definitely Captain Marvel. I think she was a character I was scared of the most because I hadn't really written her at all before, and I didn't want to screw it up because she's got such a devoted following, and a character, who's kind of just in the same way we've seen Black Panther get thrust into the national spotlight over the course of the last few months. Carol Danvers is sort of the next one up, and her movie's not too far off. So I didn't want to screw that up. Didn't really know how to approach her. She's got a really complicated, convoluted backstory. So how do you boil that down and make her cool? But I feel like I found that with the help of Margie Stoll, who writes the Captain Marvel solo book. She's helped me out a lot.
Do you do that since your book has all these different characters? Do you touch base with some of the other writers who work on them? Although, I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
You've written the solo books for a bunch of these characters, Doctor Strange, Thor,
sure.
whatnot, but does that help you to touch base?
Yeah,
with
it's easy to touch base with the Thor writer. Yeah, we touch base all the time.
Jason, this is Jason.
Yeah, I mean, we have, Marvel retreats in New York every few months, so I can, sit next to Ta-Nehisi Coates and talk about Black Panther and talk to Margie about Captain Marvel. So yeah, we all sit in the same room, and I have to pitch this Avengers story to all those people too. So helps us all to get on the same page.
What else can you tell us specifically about the first arc when it debuts?
Well, it follows from the seeds of the stuff that was planted in the Marvel Legacy one-shot, with those prehistoric characters and the Celestials. Celestials are the 2,000-foot tall omnipotent space gods. This is a bit different version of the Celestials than we've seen before, but that's who the Avengers are fighting. How do you fight, this god that's 2,000 feet tall? How do you punch that in the face? That's their challenge. So it's literally the biggest challenge they've ever faced.
Because Thor's fought them in the past, and one of the great.
A lot of those characters have had run-ins with them before, but
will there be
not
references
quite
to that
like
stuff? Because when I read that the Celestials were going to be the big bad at the start of the book, I was like, oh, that's cool, because the Thor Celestial story arc, which is around 300 issue 300, that was an amazing run.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, Odin has his own history with those characters too, right? The stuff we've seen before, then also the stuff we kind of find out over the course of this arc. And this arc's also about learning, what we think we know about the Celestials and their history with the Earth isn't exactly true. So we learn some startling new secrets about the Marvel Universe.
Everybody's got their Avengers lineup, the one that made them fans, which was Jason Aaron's Avengers lineup when he was just a fan.
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know that I have one particular lineup that would be my favorite. That period when it was like John Byrne and George Perez swapping off drawing issues was probably when I first started reading Avengers.
Yeah, late 70s, around the Korvac story.
And I love the, Kurt Busiek, George Perez run, but, there were tons of characters in that run. So I don't know, I don't have it's sort of the same way when I was doing X-Men. I don't really have one particular lineup as a fan that I gravitates towards. And for this, it's not about just putting together my favorite characters. It's really, these are the characters that feel right at this moment in time and work for the stories we're trying to tell.
Did your experience on Star Wars, which is such an incredibly important book for Marvel, relaunching the Star Wars comics line at the company, did that experience help you tackle Avengers? Because as you said, you're dealing with the characters that are going gangbusters in the movies. Captain Marvel's coming up. Black Panther is now the biggest character in the MCU right now, essentially. Did that Star Wars experience help you prepare to handle this?
Sure. I mean, I think everything I've done the last 12 years has been building towards this. I've always been, on the one hand, intimidated, and I wake up every day and pinch myself because I'm still a kid at heart, still a fan at heart. I feel like it was just yesterday when I was on the other side of the table showing up to get my book signed. And I've grown up loving comics. I've been reading comics literally since I first learned to read. So I've never lost that. I'm still a fan. But at the same time, I've never been intimidated by trying to put my own stamp on those characters that I love. I mean, I think going back to when I wrote Punisher, that was a big moment because I love Garth Ennis's Punisher run, like those 60 issues of Punisher Max. Really some of my favorite comics anybody's ever done. And when they first announced he was leaving the book, I instantly threw my hat in the ring. I was like, I want to be the next guy, even though I knew like that's terrifying. I could never follow that. I could never do that. I can't be Garth. I can't do what he does. But at the same time, I was excited to like I want to step up to the plate and try to follow that, and do something different, but to put my own stamp on it. So I think I've always felt like that, whether it was Star Wars or Avengers. Like I've never felt shy. I think you can't be afraid to put your fingerprints on the characters, right? To bend them and maybe break them a little bit. That's the only way to tell exciting stories. But I do feel like Avengers is the right time for me to do Avengers. Like I think Thor was sort of the next step to getting to that point where I've been here long enough. When you first get to Marvel, you see every writer do it where they feel like they're gonna kick me out pretty soon. Like I gotta. How do I put Spider-Man in here because I want to write Spider-Man, and then I want to write Nick Fury, so we'll have everybody show up. But at some point you sort of get some confidence, and you're like, all right, they haven't kicked me out yet. I think like with Thor, I just said I'm gonna be on Thor until I'm done, or you're just gonna have to pry it out of my hands. Like I'm not leaving. We can relaunch the book, whatever, but I'm not done yet. And thankfully they haven't tried to shoo me off. So I think that having that level of comfort and confidence, I think is key. So I think all that feeds into Avengers.
Speaking of Thor, you wrecked a lot of people with
including my mom. My mom's still not
finale.
talking.
I mean, the finale of Jane Foster's story. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
How mad is your mom at you over that?
She was pretty upset. Yeah, she knew what was coming, but she didn't want to believe it. She's still mad about it. Still mad at me about Southern Bastards #4. So she's got a lot of issues with me. I wrote this piece that goes in the back of 706, which is the next part, the last issue of that that series, where doing Jane Foster's story has not just been one of the most rewarding things for me as a comic book writer, but it's kind of one of the most rewarding things in my life. Like, I've never had signings that have been that emotional or intense, or I've never been as emotionally invested in a superhero as I have been in her, and I've never felt that level of investment from fans. So it's been insane. Yeah, there's been a lot of tears along the way, but I think that's an important part of it.
Your creator-owned book, Southern Bastards. You started 4 years ago, I believe?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
What's it like seeing where it was when it started to now? Because you obviously don't work on that as often as you do the Marvel books.
Sure.
Has the story changed for you?
No, I mean, I think the country's changed a little bit. I think the book became more topical than we ever imagined it would be 4 years ago. I mean, it was me and Jason Latour starting out to do this very personal book for us. Two creators from the South. There aren't a ton of those, but there are a few comic book creators from the South, so we gravitated towards each other.
It's a growing number.
Sure, yeah. And a football murder comic. Nobody was really screaming for a football murder comic. So we started this thinking, is anybody going to care about this? Will anybody want to read this other than us? So it's been, of course, incredibly gratifying when it does well and you win awards, and then now maybe there'll be a TV show or whatever. Like having it find that audience, is really gratifying.
As a guy who handles some of these epic superhero books, Gods of Thunder and Celestials and Avengers and whatnot, is it nice to still be able to return to your creator-owned world and do something that, while still fiction, is a bit more grounded in some of the things of reality, like the mood of the country, football, which is near and dear to both of our hearts.
Sure.
As we're both big college football fans, is it nice to be able to step back and still have something like that to work on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for me, it keeps me from getting bored, I mean, for me as a consumer, as a reader, I love a little bit of everything, right? Like when I'm reading comics, I read superhero stuff, I read crime, I read, little independent books, I read a little bit of everything. And I think I'm like that as a creator too. I love superheroes. I don't do it just because it's a job that pays okay. Like I do it because I really enjoy it. I think I like being able to do all those different things. I wouldn't want to just do superhero books. I wouldn't want to just do Southern Bastards all the time. I think I'd drive myself crazy. So I love being able to, go back and forth. So one week I'm writing about Celestials, and then the next week I'm writing about Coach Boss. So I love that. It keeps me, helps you flex all the creative muscles.
Give me 3 books that are on Jason Aaron's pull list.
Oh man, it's way more than 3.
So give me 5.
I always blank when people put me on the spot about stuff. I mean, I'd say I can always name creators. I love everything Donny Cates is doing. At Marvel Land, his independent stuff, his creator-owned stuff. I still love Greg Rucka. Pretty much anything Greg Rucka does. His image books, Lazarus and Black Magic, are both dynamite. And I'd love Tom King's stuff. I mean, he's an easy name to add to list, but he's so good. Mr. Miracle is such a great book.
Cool. Jason, thanks so much for the time.
No problem. Thank you.